Everyone thinks you need money to invest. That's wrong. There's a hidden path beginners are using right now to turn zero into something powerful faster than expected in 2026 today. At some point, many people experience a quiet realization that changes how they see their financial future. It usually doesn't happen during a crisis or a dramatic event. Instead, it happens during ordinary moments, like noticing that someone with a similar background is suddenly thinking differently about money. That person isn't necessarily earning dramatically more income, but their mindset and trajectory have clearly shifted. Daniel experienced this moment at age 26. Daniel had done everything that was expected. Daniel worked consistently, paid bills on time, and avoided unnecessary risks. From the outside, Daniel appeared responsible and stable. But during a conversation with a coworker, Daniel learned that the coworker had been steadily investing small amounts for years. The coworker wasn't wealthy yet, but there was visible confidence in how the coworker spoke about the future. What affected Daniel most wasn't the coworker's current financial situation. It was the direction. The coworker had momentum. Daniel did not. This realization created an uncomfortable truth. Waiting had not created safety. Waiting had created delay. And delay had allowed others to build experience and position themselves ahead. Daniel began to understand that investing isn't something people start when everything feels perfect. It's something people start while things are still imperfect. This shift in perspective opened a door that Daniel had ignored for years. Starting with zero can feel discouraging, especially in countries where the cost of living is high and financial pressure is constant. Michael lived in Toronto and faced this exact situation. Between rent, groceries, and basic expenses, there was rarely anything left over. Investing seemed unrealistic, not because Michael didn't understand its importance, but because there simply wasn't extra capital available. However, this limitation created an unexpected advantage. Instead of relying on money, Michael began focusing on building the ability to generate money. Michael explored practical ways to increase income, including learning digital skills that could be applied remotely. These efforts didn't immediately produce large amounts of income, but they proved something important. Income wasn't fixed. It could be expanded with intention and effort. This realization changed how Michael approached money entirely. Instead of feeling trapped by current income, Michael began focusing on increasing earning capacity and creating opportunities for future investing. People who begin this way often develop stronger discipline because they understand the value of every dollar. They don't rely on large starting capital. They rely on consistency, awareness, and long-term thinking. This foundation becomes incredibly powerful over time. When Sarah began setting aside small amounts consistently, the progress didn't feel significant. The amounts were modest and there was no immediate transformation in lifestyle. From the outside, nothing appeared different. However, internally, something important was happening. Sarah was building a habit. This habit gradually changed Sarah's identity. Instead of seeing investing as something that might happen in the future, Sarah began seeing investing as part of daily life. This change influenced other decisions. Spending became more intentional. Financial awareness increased. Long-term thinking replaced short-term impulses. What made this stage difficult was the lack of visible results. Human psychology is naturally drawn to immediate feedback, and when progress is slow, it's easy to assume that nothing meaningful is happening. But the truth is that this stage builds the psychological and behavioral foundation required for long-term growth. Without this stage, larger progress cannot be sustained. Sarah didn't realize it at the time, but consistency was quietly building momentum. James experienced a turning point that had nothing to do with the amount of money invested. The turning point was psychological. James stopped seeing investing as something optional. It became something automatic. This shift removed emotional resistance. Investing was no longer dependent on motivation or temporary excitement. It became part of routine behavior. This change simplified decision making. Instead of debating whether to invest, James focused on maintaining consistency and improving strategy. Over time, this created confidence. Confidence reduced hesitation. Reduced hesitation allowed faster and more effective decisions. People often believe that financial growth comes from finding perfect opportunities. In reality, financial growth usually comes from building reliable systems and maintaining consistent behavior over long periods. James wasn't doing anything extraordinary. James was simply doing ordinary things consistently. That consistency created separation. Emily lived in London and had always believed that investing required large initial capital. This belief came from outdated assumptions about how financial markets operated. Historically, high entry barriers made investing inaccessible to many people. However, modern financial platforms have removed many of these barriers. Emily discovered that it was possible to begin with extremely small amounts. Fractional investing allowed participation without requiring large capital. This discovery changed Emily's perspective entirely. Investing was no longer restricted to people with significant resources. It became accessible to anyone willing to start. However, Emily also learned an important lesson. Access alone doesn't guarantee success. Many people gain access but fail to maintain consistency or discipline. Technology provides opportunity. Discipline determines outcome. This distinction explains why some people achieve progress while others remain stuck despite having access to the same tools. Chris reached a stage where investing stopped feeling difficult. This didn't happen suddenly. It happened gradually after consistent behavior was maintained long enough to become automatic. Instead of relying on motivation, Chris relied on structure. Regular contributions were scheduled, financial decisions were planned in advance, emotional decision making was minimized. This shift made investing sustainable because it removed dependence on willpower. If you want to learn how to build a structure like this and avoid the mistakes most beginners make, subscribe now so you don't miss the upcoming strategies that can accelerate this process. Chris realized that long-term growth isn't about intensity, it's about stability. This stability created confidence and predictability. After consistency was established, Alex noticed something unexpected. Progress began accelerating without increasing effort. The early foundation began producing results independently. This is where time becomes a powerful force. Growth begins building on previous growth. Momentum begins reinforcing itself. At this stage, patience becomes easier because progress becomes visible. Alex realized that the hardest part wasn't the strategy itself. The hardest part was maintaining consistency long enough to reach this stage. Once this stage is reached, progress becomes more predictable. This predictability creates long-term stability. Olivia had always planned to start investing eventually, but eventually kept getting postponed. There was always a reason to wait. Expenses felt too high. Income felt insufficient. Timing never felt perfect. Years passed faster than expected. When Olivia finally started, Olivia realized that the biggest loss wasn't money. The biggest loss was time. Time cannot be recovered. This realization changed how Olivia viewed financial decisions permanently. Starting earlier doesn't guarantee instant success, but it guarantees valuable experience and positioning. Delaying guarantees missed opportunity. Over time, the difference between those who begin early and those who delay becomes increasingly clear. This difference isn't always dramatic in the beginning, but it becomes obvious later. People who build consistent habits develop confidence and clarity. People who delay remain uncertain and hesitant. This separation isn't caused by luck. It's caused by behavior repeated consistently over time. Nathan noticed that the people who achieved stability weren't necessarily the most talented. They were the most consistent. Consistency created progress. Progress created independence. Independence created options. Every person eventually faces a decision: continue waiting or begin building. There is no perfect moment. There is no perfect starting point. There is only the decision to begin. Ethan made this decision despite uncertainty. The early stages weren't dramatic, but the direction changed permanently. Financial independence doesn't appear suddenly. It develops gradually through consistent action and disciplined thinking. The most important step isn't finding the perfect strategy. The most important step is beginning. Comment below with the word "ready" if you've decided to stop waiting and start building your future. And watch the next video, because that's where the exact step-by-step execution strategy becomes clear.